Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in to week 3 of the Violence Prevention Alliance's Peace in the Pandemic series. My name is Janelle Llewellyn and I'll be a moderator for today. And as much as the session is guided by discussions around men, I will still be here just infusing comments and concerns coming from the viewers on what it is like for the men to be coping in the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, as I mentioned, if you're just tuning in for the first time, we are the VPA. We are an organization that seeks to find best solutions, best practices, taking a public health approach and a data-driven approach to finding solutions to ending violence in our country. Now, we have with us 2 panelists today. They come from different backgrounds, come with different perspectives. However, they all come to us find meaning solutions in the end and just inform on what's happening on the ground in their different capacities. We have with us Mr. Reverend Dave Hazel. He is a lecturer in pastoral counseling and psychology at the United Theological College of the West Indies. And we also have with us Mr. Jerome Jackson, who is the acting chairman of the Greater Augustown CDC. Welcome to both of you. I'm just going to ask if you can, in a minute or so, just introduce yourselves. Let us know that the work is being done or what kind of work is being done in your organization. Then we will get into the subtopics for today's discussion. So I'm going to start with you, Reverend Hazel.
Okay, well, as you heard, I'm Reverend Dr. Hazel. I'm a lecturer at United Theological College, where I work with training pastors for the pastoral ministry in various churches. United Theological College is a collaboration of 6 different denominations. So pastors can come from those or any other denominations for training. But we also offer also training in counseling for social workers. We do occasional seminars for students, counselors, a range of other kinds of groupings. So we provide those kinds of services. So we often are in this process or at the stage of helping persons to prepare to deal with those who might be victims or those who are experiencing some other trauma related to violence. And so in that, oftentimes we experience what is happening for men and the role that the experience that men are having in crises like this.
Okay, thank you so much, Reverend Hazel. Jerome Jackson, can we hear from you?
I hope you're able to hear me clearly. I trust you're able to hear me.
Yes, so far so good.
Wonderful. All right, so I'm Jerome Jackson. I am the acting chairman of the Greater Augustown CDC and Benevolent Society. And as a community development council, our mission really is to see how best we can, redefine the image of our community in Augustown. Augustown in itself has a reputation, as it were. So as a council, we have taken on the duty of refreshing the page of our community. And that has been one of my main tasks as head of the organization, is to ensure that the team is mobilized to meet the community's needs, as best as we can, as a council, as a committee, as a community development council. So as it is right now, in light of the pandemic, we've been seeking to, attend to our elder people mostly, not everyone, but predominantly our elder people, understanding that this particular virus is particularly unfriendly to them, So we've been doing our best regarding to caring for the elderly people in our community. Our most recent projects would have been around providing masks, sanitization, food for the elder ones in our community. This has been our most recent activity. So yeah, that's in essence what we do, look after our community. There's much more to it, but immediately in light of the pandemic, that's where we're at.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing, and we appreciate the community efforts at this time to just ensure that our persons remain safe and they have the necessary tools and equipment to, be protected in the pandemic. Now, The discussion today promised to be free-flowing and engaging as much as possible, but we'd like to stick with some areas that we have noticed shifts that have taken place pre and during the current pandemic. Now, these will be changes experienced by males with regards to economic challenges being faced due to COVID-19, and also positive engagement of fathers with families in and outside of the household. Now, I believe we can stick to the first one, the economic challenges first. So, Dave, Hazel, what would you like to say about that? What experiences have you seen that's taking place with regards to possibly job security and the economic fallout and being laid off? Have you spoken to any men with that regard as to what's happening during the pandemic?
Well, not one of the issues has been, and this is some feedback that I've received because I'm a part of a Caribbean network of men's groups, and in that, some of the feedback that has come has been the concern that men have who have been laid off, for example, and having to be at home, not earning, and there are increased demands at home. And so the challenge of feeling like I'm the provider in a situation where you are unable to provide, in a situation where there is a lot of cram living together in small at home. So that's been one of the concerns that, and of course there's, because of the unpredictability of the pandemic, there is a real anxiety, I think, among some men as to what's going to happen to the future, in the future. When will I get a job? When will I be able to get back out there? So in addition to the lockdown orders, there is just the unpredictability of how the economy will go, and so there are real concerns and anxieties about that. And then of course, because you are more of the family's home, children are home. You know, if you have lost your job, you are home. It's for some persons who are still working, some of the work is being done at home. So the home environment is a much more cramped space. And so managing the challenges of that, more children are home, children are eating more food. And the challenges of all of that can be difficult for someone who considers themselves to be the breadwinner, but who has lost their job, and create additional pressure for them.
Okay. Jerome, seeing that your organization would have possibly distributed care packages and so forth, have you come across any household where the men unfortunately just unable to cope at this time, and how have they been addressing that situation, if they have been addressing it?
Well, Janelle, being very honest with you, while I've been directing the team, I have not been in the community per se, because I'm not living in Auguston right now. However,
Okay.
I've been in contact with brothers who have shared with me their experience. And to be very real with you, the quarantine, the current situation, as in quarantine, the current situation is not much different from what it has always been for a lot of men in Auguston and the inner city community. Unemployment is still an issue. Based on the demands in the work in the job market, a lot of the men are not, qualified for a lot of the jobs. They don't retain this what is called the soft skills. You know what I mean? So if it's not construction, etc., you get what I mean? It becomes a challenge for persons. And in a time like this, well, everything has been brought to a halt. And so, talking about economic challenges, a lot of men have been facing that prior to a pandemic situation, right? And so the conversation has not changed much. And as it relates to being able to provide, or the inability to provide, that in itself has always been I'm trying to find a word for that, but it's that burden on the shoulder of many of the brothers, you know? And so what makes it worse though is when there is limited availability of jobs based on their limited skills, and now a pandemic situation that brings them into a lockdown situation.
Yes.
So the hustling kind of cut off. And when the hustling cut off, now that creates major.
Yes.
Hold a second. Hold a second. Hold a second.
Dave, just switching back
My
the conversation.
apologies.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. I continue.
Right. So again, I apologize. I'm at work, so and this is
That's
a
fine. No
newsroom.
worries.
So yeah. So but yeah, the conversation around unemployment and hasn't changed. There's anxiety naturally. I mean, I'm agreeing with what Dave said just now. A lot of brothers are anxious because now it is that you are actually, when you could go hustle and coming back, and if it don't work, or if it work a little bit today and it work only tomorrow, no, you're like, what am I going to do?
To do, yes.
Now, sadly, and I'm not speaking of Augustone per se, and I pray I've not heard it. I've heard of instances in Augustone or situations in Augustone that have been untimely, as in really sad. I mean, we heard of a double murder sometime last month, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even though the double murder may not be necessarily in relation to COVID-19 and the pandemic situation, the pandemic situation even makes it a little bit more easier for persons to become agitated. You understand? And you know, where there's a saying that says when you're hungry, a hungry man is an angry man. And so there are lots of persons, men, who are unable to make ends meet, and it's really heightening tension. You know what I mean? And I'm certain it's not just Augustone. I heard one of my colleagues shared with me a couple of weeks ago things that are happening in other communities where men are, becoming more abusive. And it's not just men, but I was speaking of brothers now, where men are becoming a little bit more abusive because of dissatisfactions in the home. You know what I mean? Maybe they have the complaints are many, but some of them has increased. So I can understand the state of affairs in many homes, especially in inner city communities, and especially among our fathers who are just, were prior to the pandemic finding it difficult to make ends meet. It has really exacerbated the situation.
One of the sort of positive things on the flip side, though, because there are a lot of challenges that men are facing, but then there are some good things that are happening too. In the case of some fathers who are trying their best to rise to the occasion of having more caregiving and parental responsibilities at home. And one of the things, for example, that you see more men trying to do is to make time to either help their children with with some of the homeschooling, or trying to provide some kind of recreational space for their children, playing with them, doing things with them. And so on the other side of the kind, I think some men are seeing this as an opportunity for family bonding. And I was working with a couple recently, and one of the issues that they were discussing that has actually been a help to them has been the opportunity to stay at home and to talk through some of the issues that for a long time they had not gotten an opportunity to talk about. So there's that side of the coin as well. And there are some men who are using the opportunity also to retool themselves. So there's more time available to go on YouTube and to discover some other things, those who have that kind of access. So the downside is balanced, I think, by some of the ups that some men are making use of the opportunity that this lockdown has created to do some other things and to build interaction with their family and their partners.
If I may add on to what Dave just said, you said interaction, Dave.
Yeah.
I was doing the public opinion is one of the things I do here at Nationwide.
Yeah.
And I asked some of the brothers, I remember asking brothers and sisters, male and female, how is the lockdown working out for them? And would you believe that a number of the brothers made mention of love making and
Yes.
or making babies. You know, that was one of the things that were brought up by that number of men. I
Yes.
mean, I'm lucky man at time to start hibernate, as it were. So,
So love making turn up.
yeah, all of them things. Yes, there's a flip side, but I mean, in the whole family planning, if I may use you put it that way, we have to
Yes.
consider that the economics which is what we started off with, has to be a part of the whole balancing act.
Sure.
I would further to say that in this time, it does provide opportunity for persons to educate themselves, and some men have been educating themselves, as it were, in fields of their preference. Being that we're talking about fathers um, and our husbands at this time,
Yeah.
I know that there are those men who have some good women standing with them who, in a time like this, instead of being, being badgered by, oh, this not coming in or that not coming in, have been able to, be creative and innovative in this time to make ends meet. And not just to make ends meet, but to enjoy the time together, you know what I mean? And I really, that is something very, very to be applauded, you know what I mean? So it's not all bad, but the economic side of it really, I mean, there are persons
Still a
saying
major
we need
challenge.
to reopen the economy. Yeah, there are persons
Mm-hmm.
begging for that, saying, listen, at a time like this, we don't know how much longer we can
Yes.
stay, in this state where our hands feel tied. We need to be able to do something. And that's
And they
where
have to balance between the health and the economy at this point, and you wonder which one do we go forward with?
I tell you that that is a sticky one, a rock and a hard place, I call it.
Rock and a hard place.
I
There you
was
go.
I was watching a video um, earlier on this was earlier on this week or earlier on today. A gentleman, well, I can't really call him a gentleman. I wasn't so gentle at all. But my cousin I go on the most way that the lockdown if you don't know one thing and that way, and that Andrew Holness is not like a puppet in anything America do. So he was venting his anger. And I think that is part of the challenge to that a lot of men feel angry under the lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't know where to point the anger. And so
Yes.
the easiest target is to just cuss off Andrew Willis. So I've seen at least two videos of men just kind of cussing. So my sense is that there might be some of that kind of trying to find a way to deal with the anger that is going
Mm-hmm.
on caused by the
Dave, and
limitation. Yeah.
yes, I'm happy that you mentioned that point. And in the realm of spirituality, do you find that persons are tapping into that more, or they're stepping back and say, boy, it's a situation where they just have to try and fend for themselves. They can't depend on faith, so to speak. From your observation.
You're finding
Go ahead.
both things, because on the one hand you find some are saying, well, when they consider all of the things related to the pandemic, something look spooky or divinity in this, yeah. And so
Yes.
it is driving some to be a little bit more reflective. One of the interesting things that you find too is that some of the conspiracy theories about where COVID come from and so on, or is this a dress rehearsal for the final days now? Is
Yes.
Jesus coming back kind of thing? But a lot of the dialogue and discussion around those things are by men. And so when you go online and see some of the things, a lot of them are because they are trying to make sense of it.
Of what's
They're
going
trying
on.
to understand in their own mind what is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just conversation about it can be a helpful thing in that regard. Talking to other men, talking to other people, so that you're together trying to figure out how you're really feeling and how you're interpreting what is going on. So I think there are some who are leaning towards a more spiritual interpretation of what is going on, and are feeling that for them this is a kind of wake up call. Let me get more serious. And then there
Yes.
are others who are vexed with God, because God could have just make things, just
Mm-hmm.
get to us up, so you're seeing those two extremes, I think. um, and so for those who are feeling the anger and not quite sure how to express it or where to express it, um, one of the ways is, as I said, to just point their finger at the politicians and say, I know some people, for example, vexed with China. are just upset because they feel that China is to blame, and so trying to find someone to blame. But I think helping men to talk about it might be one of the ways that we help them to deal with some of it. Whether it is that you're creating online forums where they can talk about it, like even discussions like this now for some men, or but wherever there is still, you still have men meet on the corner and play domino, as part of their social activity. They might not be as adventurous to go, outside of their communities, or outside of them lane, but there's still some amount of interaction, and that might be a place where they can offload some of the thoughts that they're experiencing and feeling.
I am listening for the moderator to come back on, but as you were making the points, remembered something about mental health, a conversation around that recently, and we're speaking to spirituality. And those two for me are tied together when you talk about someone's mental space and understanding spirituality in this time. I find that we, and by we I mean the general society, the general populace, has a limited understanding of what it means to be mentally well. Understand? And as a result, when we see certain manifestations of mental ill health, we can't even identify it. And by that I mean what one may call anomalies in behavior. Understand? And in a crisis situation, there's a tendency for persons to behave what one may deem as abnormal. I mean, severe circumstances require severe responses, or drastic measures, or drastic times call for drastic measures. Right? And so a man's mental health comes into question when he has to consider his entire family. And he may, as we have reasoned earlier, be the sole breadwinner. Understand? So I've heard calls from groups suggesting that the government should set about establishing like a task force in a gear that catering to the mental health of society. And I dare say the mental health of men mostly. And I could be real and honest, man. Jamaica is predominant poor people, right? The larger cross section of our populace are people who are grassroots people. You understand? Who are 9 to 5ers, who are people who have to get up, and a lot of us are hand to mouth, straightforward. Now, in a situation like this, the mental space is really topsy turvy. And yes, many are going to try to find, who do I put the blame? Where do I didn't cause this, so how did this thing come about? Who is responsible for this? And then it's not just who is responsible. How now do we get to a space where is either this is the new normal and how we approach it, or will this thing come to an end and we get past it? Many persons don't want to think of this as the end. You know what I mean? And even though there's much talk about the world coming to an end, and there are believers and non-believers, the point is, at this current juncture where we are, how do we proceed forward? That is the question I believe rests on many minds. How do we go forward? What do we do to go forward? Because we don't want to be here for too long. I mean, this is not a comfortable place to be standing in.
Not at all.
A lot of brothers would like to know, what do I do now? The ones who can't be as innovative to maneuver the softwares and to apply the IT technology or the IT whatever knowledge to get a job or to become creative. What do they do now? You know what I mean? And the long and short of it, I'm looking forward to the conversation getting to the place where we begin to provide some amount of advice, encouragement. But I won't jump the gun. I'll leave it. I'll wait.
No, I think that's going to be part of what we do. I think in a real sense, we have just kind of been going through the motion when it comes down to things like education. We're kind of just going through the motions of taking children from one grade to the next, and not providing sufficient space for them to engage with each other about some of the psychological and emotional issues that that they're facing.
Right.
And so it's like those things are kind of they carry them through life, and at in adulthood, some of that get expressed in some of the most inappropriate ways, or in ways that people just don't understand.
Right.
And I think that part of the way forward is going to be providing more space in the earlier years in our education system for our children, to talk about some of the issues, some of the challenges that they are facing, in their home environment, for example. Some of the challenges that they are facing in their communities. And to provide some ways of one of the things that somebody was saying to me the other day is, as they were going through different things on YouTube and finding out different things that talk about money management,
Right.
and how you make better use of your finances. We're saying, boy, that we're not teaching the children those things. We're not teaching the children or children, and therefore both men and women grow up and don't maximize what they can do even with a little bit amount of money. I mean, somehow women do a better job of it, and maybe some of the socialization that they receive helps them. And one of the things that I feel, going forward, might be about what are we doing in families to make the socialization of our boys and girls more equitable, so that some of the management skills, some of the focused, tendencies that the girls are developing, that allows them to do better in school, that allows them to do more with a little bit of money, so that the boys are also developing some of those skills, and that collectively they are being challenged to think about how we manage money, how we do the best with money, so that they realize that some of the things that they might see other people have and are able to do, that they can do it too.
Yes.
Sometimes you look at some people, tradespeople, for example, and if you add up what they get, then I mean over time they get a substantial amount.
Yeah.
But helping them to see what they can do with that small amount, and that what they're getting is more than they think in terms of comparatively, and how much more it could go if they were to guide their financial management in different directions. That they were exposed to different kind of investment instruments and so on.
And so forth.
So all of those things I think are part of what you're saying there, Jerome. We need to be looking at how what next, what are some things that we do next in terms of equipping men and women and families generally from they are young to begin to think of how do I deal with the emotional and psychological things that I'm going through, and how can I how can those experiences actually become stepping stones rather than things that destroy.
Mandatory.
Dave and Jerome, I'm just going to ask, as we wrap up, just what tips would you like to leave with our viewers, and we're targeting the men now, to keep the peace in the pandemic? To not look on aggressive means of resolving violence, and not staying sheltered and living in a fear and constant anxiety. What tips would you leave with them?
If I may go first.
Yes.
Sure.
All right. So I had written down when I was listening to that, waiting for that question. I saw a posting on Instagram. As a matter of fact, I have some young men who regularly send me invites to watch them perform. And by perform, they post their thing on Instagram. I'd call them literary artists, but they're singers. They sing, they write music, and they sing.
Okay.
And they present their creative abilities to the world.
Yeah.
And I believe that's a good way to pass time, and also to even train one's self, hone one's skills. You know what I mean?
Yes.
In this time. And that in itself can become money in your hands, because we know that in Jamaica, the most expensive product is music.
Yes.
We that's undoubtedly probably more, I mean, music, arts. Still, I mean, we know, right?
Things that are culturally aligned.
Right. So I'd encourage young men who are at this time preoccupied or not occupied at all. You understand? To occupy yourself with doing things that are creative and innovative. Educate oneself. As long as you can get on the online, man. If it's a Wi-Fi network or you have service, get on. Educate yourself. Learn something new. Innovate. Try something. Build something. Create something. You'll find it
Great.
rewarding in doing so, and it will reward you also after you've created the product or products. The elder
Good.
men, I want to just address this quickly. For the elder men, I found that there has been a disconnect in our African community, and I did say when I sent my email to you, Janelle, that I'm
Yes.
oriented in that I'm
You told us.
Rastafari, right? So when it comes on to the family circle and the African family, there has been a disconnect. You understand? We don't find the type of, communication that should be happening between the elders and the adults and the children and that circle of information where the elders are learning from the babies. You understand? That is how it
Yes.
has to be. And so a lot of our elders, our fathers, our grandfathers are not feeling so indispensable. But they're feeling like, okay, my years are done and it's time for me to get out of here. And I don't know if you use the internet, so hello. That's fine.
Yes.
My thing is, it is time now. No, this is the opportune time for elders to be called upon for their knowledge and wisdom and understanding brought through experiences to be called upon. Learn and for them to be the teachers now. Because the type of teacher we need now, you will not find in a classroom. Because there are no classrooms.
Oh.
So now you will
I like that.
definitely have to sit at the elders' feet, literally, and learn from them. And there are many lessons to be learned from the elders as it relates to how to be a community. You understand how to actually, and even the elders themselves need lessons now. I know it's a good time for them to learn from the children as to
Yes.
how to master
Both ways.
things of this time that they have not mastered. So that sort of community activity should be robust and right. If you ask me, now is the time to actually see it manifest into a beautiful. That's just my few words.
Okay, great. And foster those two-way relationships.
Yes. And I
All
think
right, Dave.
a lot of the older men really do need some support. With domestic support, for example, with household help, with grocery shopping, with cooking, and things like that. So because some of them have lost their companion, so that their wife or spouse is no longer there,
And fending for
this is
themselves now.
right, and this is where I mean younger sons can look out for their older fathers and grandfathers.
True.
I think as some of the other coping things that we need to consider, as I was saying earlier on, encourage conversation. I agree with what Jerome is saying about providing a space for cultural expression. Whether you put it on YouTube or just have like a thing in the community.
Yes.
For those of you who have access to the internet, online sports, online games, movies. Listening to music.
Yes.
Getting back into some nice good oldies and some classical.
It's true.
But also encouraging the men to continue to build space with your children. So playing some family games, playing some little things, some little Ludo and some things where play for a long time with your children, and building the bonds with them, I think is important. And one of the things that I feel, we're not getting a lot of rain now, and that is an issue. But if you can do in a little backyard gardening at the time,
Yes.
is a thing, is really a time to kind of think about it, So those are some coping things I think are important.
Okay. Thank you so much both for sharing. Now, just to wrap up and summarize, we spoke about how the relationship, because of how cramped the situation is at home, may result into unfavorable situations. Now, there are ways and means to work around that. And one of the main themes coming out was just to have a conversation and hear from persons their different perspectives and see how best they can shift things in a household. Talk about the issues, love making, interactions, educating themselves in fields of interest. All of those combined can create peace in a pandemic. And you left us with some important tips that I believe it resonated with me and it may resonate with our viewers as well. Young men, use the time to educate and create. And it also ties it back to our economic challenges that we're speaking about earlier. Tap into the opportunities now so that when things get back to normal, you'll be equipped with the necessary skills to do what you love, live your passion, and also bring some income to you. There's a current disconnect with the elders. Now is the time for the young ones to reach out to them. Both ways can teach each other about what they are educated in and call upon their wisdom, as Jerome would have stated. They've ended with just encouraging conversation overall. Now, I just want to thank you both for giving us your time, giving us your expertise, giving us your knowledge, and letting us know what's happening on the ground with men. Really love the discussion, and just want to inform our viewers that there may be some technical challenges with sharing our hotline screens, but there are hotlines out there that persons can make a call. There are lines for females, there are lines for males with regards to domestic abuse, be it social support that you would need, parenting support. Trust me, now is the time not to feel alone. There are persons out there who would like to assist, and the means and ways are there. So if they're not shared after this session, they're always going to be on our social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So again, thank you. Next week, we'll be talking to the women and hearing all the lovely things and probably the not so lovely things that are happening in the household, happening in the communities. But for now, just want to encourage our persons to keep the conversation going. You're not alone, and we all must work together to create safe spaces in our environment. Thank you so much, and see you next week. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Jerome.
You're welcome.